Hello.
Hello.
I think I'm audible properly now, and
I think I'm audible properly now. I think I'm audible properly now. I think I'm
हेलो। हाय कम। हाँ।
Hello.
हाँ आदित्य। क्लास चलने लगी है। मैं मेरे फ़ोन से एकदम स्मूथ आ रहा है सब कुछ। मतलब कोई ऑडियो का लैग नहीं है। तुम्हारे में चलने लगा।
हाँ जी भैया वो स्क्रीन आ रही है।
और मेरी आवाज़
हाँ सही आ रही है।
सही आ रही है ना, एकदम क्लियर।
हम्म।
मैसेज करो इसमें चैट में। हेलो हेलो इसमें, इस चैट में आता है ना, व्हाट्सएप यूट्यूब में मैसेज करने का। बोलो भाई। किया।
कर दिया भैया
कर।
कर दिया भैया।
अच्छा कर दिया। चलो ये। हाँ चलो ठीक है, अब दिख रहा है तुम्हारा। तुम भी मेरे स्क्रीन में भी दिखता है ना कितने लोग हैं। चलो ठीक है, बिल्कुल आवाज़ क्लियर है ना, कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
हाँ जी भैया।
तो ऐसा करना, अगर कुछ भी दिक्कत हो तो मैं फ़ोन तुम्हारे मैसेज पे लगा दिया हूँ, ठीक है। तुरंत मैसेज करना, ठीक है। और या फिर क्या कहते हैं, अगर कोई डाउट आए तो कॉल ऑन रखते हैं, व्हाट्सएप कॉल ऑन रखते हैं।
ठीक है।
तो व्हाट्सएप कॉल में मैं कुछ भी समझाता रहूँगा, पूछता रहूँगा, तुम बताते रहना।
अब ऐसा करूँगा अपना माइक म्यूट रख लो ना कॉल वाला।
हाँ तुम अपना भी माइक म्यूट कर देना, मैं अपना भी माइक म्यूट कर दूंगा। जब कुछ दिक्कत आए तब तुम अनम्यूट करके बोलना, और तभी मैं अनम्यूट करूँगा, ठीक है। क्योंकि नहीं तो इको करेगा, मेरी आवाज़ फ़ोन से भी जाएगी और उससे भी जाएगी ना, तो कन्फ्यूज़न बहुत होगा। क्योंकि यूट्यूब पे आवाज़ थोड़ी लेट पहुँचेगी। 10-20 सेकंड का, 25 सेकंड का लैग आ रहा है, आता है, ठीक है। और फ़ोन पे तुरंत
अच्छा।
पहुँच, हाँ तुरंत पहुँचती है, तो इस वजह से। समझ रहे हो।
नहीं फोन मैंने अगर ईयरफोन लगा रखे हैं तो भी लग करेगा मेरा।
अरे यूट्यूब से सिग्नल ही, मतलब यूट्यूब में अपलोड होता है ना, फिर बहुत लंबा प्रोसेस होता है
अच्छा।
यूट्यूब, तो इस वजह से मैं कह रहा हूँ।
ठीक है।
ठीक है।
ठीक है।
तो मैं अभी तो मतलब यूट्यूब में क्लियर आ रहा है। मैं अभी अपने आप को म्यूट करता हूँ, तुम भी कर लो। जब कुछ डाउट आए तभी पूछना, तभी
ठीक
अनम्यूट
है।
करके मुझे बोलना, ठीक
ठीक है।
है। और मैं अपने आप
ठीक
को,
है।
मैं अपने आप को अनम्यूट नहीं करूँगा, मैं अपने आप को ये यूट्यूब से ही समझा दूँगा। ठीक।
ठीक है।
चलो। तो देखो, लास्ट क्लास में एक इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक के बारे में मैं सोच रहा था तुम्हें बताऊं, तब जाके तुम्हें ये जो नर्व है ना, न्यूरॉन, न्यूरॉन को जब तक नहीं समझोगे ना, तब तक तुम मसल कॉन्ट्रैक्शन को नहीं समझ पाओगे अच्छे से। ठीक है, सीएनएस को नहीं समझ पाओगे। और न्यूरॉन का जो वर्किंग है ना, वो बाकी सेल से बहुत अलग है। इसका एक रीज़न ये है कि मैं एक्चुअली उस दिन तुम लोग को पढ़ा रहा था ये, क्या कहते हैं, स्क्रीन को मैं इसी पोर्ट्रेट में कर देता हूँ, ठीक है। थोड़ा बड़ी दिखनी। मैंने असल में उस दिन मैं तुम लोग को जनरल सर्वे का अगला टॉपिक था मोबिलिटी, मोबिलिटी के बारे में पढ़ा रहा था। मोबिलिटी को पढ़ाते पढ़ाते मुझे गेट पोस्चर के बारे में पढ़ाना था। इसमें कौन कौन से स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं जो कि मोबिलिटी के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है। मस्कुलोस्केलेटल सिस्टम, प्रोप्रियोसेप्शन, ठीक है, सेरिबेलम फंक्शन, वेस्टिबुलर फंक्शन, इन सबको पढ़ाना है। और वेस्टिबुलर से मैंने स्टार्ट किया कि कहा चलो तुम्हारा सेंसरी सिस्टम भी कवर हो जाएगा। तो जिसमें मैंने बताया कि साउंड वेव के फॉर्म में ट्रैवल करती है, ईयर ड्रम को हिट करती है, ईयर ड्रम को अपने वाइब्रेशन ट्रांसमिट कर दी है किसको, ये ईयर ऑसिकल्स को। ये ईयर ऑसिकल्स हैं मैलियस इनकस स्टेपीज। और ओवल विंडो के थ्रू ये क्या कहते हैं, वाइब्रेशन ट्रांसमिट होते हैं फ्लूइड के अंदर, ठीक है। ये फ्लूइड के अंदर, ये जो फ्लूइड है ना, ये ओवल विंडो है, इस फ्लूइड के अंदर ये वाइब्रेशन ट्रांसमिट होते हैं। और ये फ्लूइड को कहते हैं पेरी लिम्फ, ठीक है। ठीक है। अब ये, और ये जो हो रहा है ये ओवल विंडो से ट्रांसमिट होते होते हुए वापस आएंगे राउंड विंडो से, राउंड विंडो से ये और निकल जाएंगे। और एंडोलिफ में यही वाइब्रेशन को परसीव करने के लिए, सेंस करने के लिए क्या है, सेंसरी न्यूरॉन है। ठीक है, सेंसरी न्यूरॉन है। ठीक है। और कॉक्लियर नर्व का कलेक्ट, ये सारे सेंसरी न्यूरॉन इकट्ठा होकर कॉक्लियर नर्व बनाते हैं, और तुम्हारे को साउंड का, ब्रेन तुम्हारा साउंड को क्या करता है, परसीव करता है। तो इस फ्लूइड को कहते हैं एंडोलिम्फ। अब मैंने तुमको एक दिन बातों बातों में बताया था कि कोई भी चीज़ ब्रेन तक पहुंच रही है ना, तो वो इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल के फॉर्म में पहुंचती है। ठीक है, करंट बहता है एक तरह से समझो। ठीक है, एक्शन पोटेंशियल होता है, और वो एक्शन पोटेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन को ब्रेन तक पहुंचाता है। वो एक्शन पोटेंशियल क्या कैरी करता है अपने साथ, सिग्नल्स कैरी करता है। ठीक है, इट कैरीज अ सिग्नल, और वो सिग्नल स्पेसिफिक टाइप ऑफ स्टिमुलाई की वजह से जनरेट होगा। और यहाँ पे वो स्पेसिफिक टाइप ऑफ स्टिमुलाई क्या है, साउंड। ये जो साउंड है ना, ये साउंड क्या कर रहा है, इन सेंसरी न्यूरॉन्स को एक्साइट कर रहा है, एक्टिवेट कर रहा है, एक्शन पोटेंशियल जनरेट कर रहा है, और यही साउंड को ब्रेन परसीव करेगा इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल। तो अब मैं तुमको इस साउंड से कन्वर्ट हुआ क्या, मैकेनिकल साउंड में कन्वर्ट, क्योंकि वाइब्रेशन, वाइब्रेशन की फोर्स है। ठीक है, एक तरह से क्या, और ये मैकेनिकल जो सिग्नल्स हैं ये कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल से। अब इस कन्वर्जन को ही मुझे समझाने के लिए तुमको पहले पढ़ाना पड़ेगा कि न्यूरॉन्स में ऐसी क्या खास बात है कि वो ये सब कर पाते हैं, कैसे एक फॉर्म ऑफ एनर्जी से दूसरे इलेक्ट्रिकल फॉर्म ऑफ एनर्जी में कन्वर्ट होती है, और कैसे करंट बहता है, उसको समझाने के लिए सबसे पहले तो मैं न्यूरॉन के बारे में बताना जरूरी था। ठीक है। अब न्यूरॉन के बारे में बताने से पहले मैं तुमको बताऊं, तो न्यूरॉन्स कुछ ऐसी होती है। बचपन में बहुत बार ये डायग्राम देखा होगा। तो ये न्यूरॉन है, न्यूरॉन की ये सेल बॉडी है, ये एक्सॉन है, तो ये एक्सॉन टर्मिनल है। सेल बॉडी जो है ना, इसमें होते हैं डेंड्रॉन, डेंड्राइट्स, और ये डेंड्राइट्स आगे से सिग्नल लेते हैं और इसको इस तरफ से सिग्नल ले जाते हैं, और ये एक्सॉन टर्मिनल से किसी दूसरे क्या कहते हैं, डेंड्रॉन को ये सिग्नल दे दिया जाता है। समझ रहे हो? और फिर ऐसे करके सिग्नल आगे बढ़ता रहता है। तो करंट कैसे बढ़ रहा है, सेल बॉडी से एक्सॉन की तरफ करंट मूव कर रहा है। अब ये करंट मूव करने के लिए हमको सबसे पहले समझना पड़ेगा कि ये जो सेल बॉडी है, ये जो सेल बॉडी और एक्सॉन, ये न्यूरॉन। सॉरी, हेलो। मुझे आदित्य, तुम मुझे अनम्यूट करके एक बार बता दो, आवाज़ बारिश सही हो गई है क्या?
हेलो।
हाँ, आवाज़ सही हो गई है मेरी?
बफर कर रही है बहुत।
नहीं, अभी तक
एक मिनट मैं देखता हूँ दोबारा।
अभी तक तो,
अब
अभी
अब
तक,
ठीक है।
अब ठीक है। चलो ठीक है, वो थोड़ा कॉल आ गया था इस चक्कर में। अभी बिल्कुल ठीक है ना? अभी तक 10 मिनट तक तो बिल्कुल बफर नहीं किया ना?
अब बस ये बीच में जगह पे वो लिखा ना बफरिंग,
हाँ हाँ, तो वो असल में मैंने,
आप देख भी सकते हो।
हाँ अभी वो बिल्कुल वो मैंने कर दिया है। मतलब क्या कहते हैं, उसको पॉज कर दिया था, फिर अब दोबारा रिज्यूम कर दी। चलो मैं देख लेता हूँ, ठीक है, तुमको मैं पढ़ाता हूँ।
ठीक है। Hmm.
सो ओवरऑल मैं क्या कह रहा था कि इस इस सेल मेम्ब्रेन को पढ़ना बहुत ज़रूरी है, तब जाके हमको बाकी चीज़ें समझ में आएंगी. ओके. सो for understanding the cell membrane, I told you regarding the resting membrane potential. Resting membrane potential is the potential of the cell membrane of neurons when cell is in the resting stage. That means it is not conducting any current. Okay. Cell membrane, the membrane potential when cell is not conducting any current, at that point the potential that cell membrane has is known as resting membrane potential. So now the question is how this resting membrane potential is formed, because see this bit potential means a difference of charge. There is a difference between the charge. Inside the cell is more negative and outside the cell it is more positive, and that is what is creating a charge gradient, and that is creating potential difference between the inside of the cell membrane and outside of the cell membrane, and that is known as resting membrane potential. It is usually 90 milli minus 90 millivolt. Okay. And that I also explained about what is this potential is actually all about. Potential is like ability to do work, something like that. Okay, ability to do work, it is in the physics terminology. Over here I will tell you like the potential difference between the cells will facilitate the movement of ions along their potential gradient. For example, right now if I tell you inside the cell is inside the cell is negative and outside the cell is positive. Okay. And supposedly there is potassium ion higher in this inside of the cell. So what is the tendency of this potassium ion, where is the tendency of potassium ion is to go? So this charged, this minus 90 millivolt charge is actually facilitating the movement of potassium ion outside the cell. Sorry, sorry, by mistake I have told. So actually what happens, so this charge and outside is the sodium ion concentration higher. Sorry, by mistake I told you something wrong. Actually the sodium ion concentration outside the cell is higher, and inside the cell potassium ion concentration is higher. So this charge difference is actually pushing the pushing the sodium ion inside the cell. Okay, this is actually facilitating the movement of ions along the concentration gradient and along the charge gradient. Okay, potential gradient. So this is one role this resting membrane potential is playing. So first of all I will tell you how this RMP is formed, how it is maintained, and then after that I will tell you the use, what is the role, how the what is the function of this resting membrane potential and why it is so important for the nerve conduction. So that day I was telling you about these various ion channels inside the cell and everything. So right now I think I should start it once again, and I'm removing this. Okay, so that it will make more sense to you people. Now suppose this is a neuron. ठीक है, this is a neuron, this is a cell membrane, and we know there are different types of cell, there are different types of what uh, ion channels present inside the nerve cells. There are different types of ion channels which are present inside the neurons nerve cells. So I'll explain you all about this is cell membrane. Okay, what happens, there is a one ion channel when there is a pump known as sodium potassium ATPase pump. ATPase pump. And what does this pump do? It actually consumes one molecule of ATP and it converts into ADP, and because of this it actively pumps out potassium inside the cell, 2 potassium inside the cell, and it actively pushes sodium outside the cell, 3 sodium ions outside the cells. Okay, 3 sodium ions are pushed out of the cells with the help of this sodium potassium ATPase pump. And this is the function of this pump, and it is always present, it is always working inside the cell. It is contributing to create the concentration gradient. Overall, the role of the sodium potassium pump ATPase pump is sodium potassium ATPase pump is creates the concentration gradient concentration gradient across cell membrane for sodium and potassium ion. What does that mean? Actually, sodium is more outside the cell because continuously this pump is pushing out the sodium ion outside the cell. So the concentration across outside the cell of sodium as compared to inside will be higher, and potassium inside the cell will be lower. Okay, so what happens after certain amount of time, the potassium ions will be loaded inside the cell. Just think it in this way. Okay, and sodium ion will be loaded outside the cell. And few days ago I have explained you regarding what, regarding the osmolarity, osmotic pressure, concentration difference. So what happens whenever there is a concentration gradient across the selectively permeable membrane or semi permeable membrane? So what happens, there is movement of solvent, but also if we provide the passage for the movement of solute, there is a movement of what, there is a movement of solute along the concentration gradient. That means sodium wants to come inside because this pump is actively pushing sodium outside the cell membrane. So the concentration of sodium here is increased. So what does this sodium wants is, it actually wants to come inside the cell via this cell membrane. Why this cell membrane? This wants to come inside. And similarly potassium wants to go outside the cell membrane, again via this cell membrane. Okay, both of these are willing to exchange their position. Sodium wants to come in and potassium wants to go out along their concentration gradient. But because but here comes one factor. One factor is what? There is selectively permeability of potassium. For the potassium is more permeable as compared to sodium through cell membrane, because there are various what, potassium channels. Selectively there are various numerous sodium channels are present that allows the movement of potassium from inside the cell to outside, whereas sodium is imporous. Sodium is not capable of coming inside the cell membrane. So what does this means? What does this actually means? Okay, till now I haven't created any potential. Till now RMP I have not discussed. I am telling you how this RMP is generated. What has actually happened? The number one step is like this sodium potassium pump is pushing out 3 sodium outside the cell membrane and 2 potassium inside the cell membrane. And what actually it resulted in the concentration gradient of these molecules along the cell membrane, where sodium is more outside the cell membrane and potassium is more inside the cell membrane. So because of this concentration gradient, these molecules are willing to grow to the opposite side, like sodium wants to come inside and potassium wants to go outside. Now here comes the role of this cell membrane. Now this membrane is what, this membrane is, it is selectively permeable. It is selectively permeable to potassium ions more. whereas impurous to sodium ion. So what will this result in? So actually I'm telling what will this result. Actually what happens, potassium wants to go out and it has channels for it. These channels are specifically made for potassium, 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 potassium. So what happens, this potassium will diffuse out. This potassium will diffuse out. So you are saying, sir, what is going to happen because of this? Now I'm telling you very important thing. Till now, till now, this sodium potassium pump was pushing out 3 sodium outside, 2 potassium inside, but still there was no difference in the, there was no difference along across the cell membrane in the ions in potential difference, because positive charge and negative charge here are equal and positive charge negative charge here are equal. There is no ionic gradient, there is no ionic gradient. Now consider this scenario. Now consider the scenario when this potassium is moving outside the cell, inside the cell is losing its positive charge. You're getting? When this potassium is going outside the cell membrane, this cell inside the cell is losing its positive charge. So what does this mean? Just think about it. Just think about it. There are two forces acting on potassium right now. One force is the concentration gradient. Concentration gradient. This concentration gradient is pushing out this potassium outside the cell membrane. Okay, this concentration gradient is pushing out the potassium outside the cell membrane. But as the cell, as this cell membrane, as this potassium is moving out the cell, out of the cell membrane, inside this is becoming negative, because when you are removing positive charge, okay, from equilibrium state, definitely remaining will be left as a negative charge. So what happens, as this potassium is inside the cell, inside cell is getting negative. So if one potassium is gone out, inside the cell is 1 negative. If 2 is gone out, 2 negative. Is 3 potassium is gone out, 3 negative. Similarly, as much this potassium is going out of the cell, inside the cell is getting negatively charged. So your question will be, till when this potassium will get out. Actually there is a specific concentration at which the force on this potassium that is pushing out, it will be equal to the ionic force that is pulling in, because the negative charge will attract positive charge. Earlier this concentration gradient was more powerful than this ionic gradient. So initially what happens, potassium tries to get out of the cell membrane because the force of concentration gradient is more. Okay, force of this concentration gradient is more, like I'm telling you in this way. Earlier this force is of concentration gradient, and ionic gradient is just beginning to initiate. What happens after certain amount of potassium ion has moved out, what happens, this concentration gradient force is decreasing, and this ionic gradient means charge difference gradient, is increasing. Ultimately a time will come when this concentration gradient will be equals to the ionic gradient. And at this concentration gradient, what happens, there will be generation of this negative charge inside the cell membrane and positive charge outside the cell membrane. And this equilibrium condition where potassium is not moving out of the cell membrane and sodium is not and sorry and potassium is not moving out of the cell membrane, and cell membrane has developed a negative charge. This negative charge gradient is actually known as resting membrane potential. I think I have made you clear how this RMP is generated. This is the basics. This is actually the basic thing, how this ionic potential is generated across this cell membrane. So I am repeating it once again. I will make it in a chart form, tabulated form, so that you understand it more properly. Number one is, there is a function of this sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium ATPase pump. What does it do? It pushes 3 sodium out and 2 potassium in, then what happens? Next step, sodium tries to move in and potassium tries to move out. But here comes the role of cell membrane. But cell membrane is selectively permeable to what? Cell membrane is selectively permeable to what? Potassium only, and impermeable to sodium. So what does this create? Is this create like sodium can come in but potassium can easily go outside. Therefore, potassium moves outside. Hence, inside cell, inside cell start to become negative because it is losing positive charge. I think you are getting this point. What happens eventually? There will be a concentration gradient inside the along the cell membrane for potassium, in which the ionic gradient force and put concentration gradient force will be equal, and at that point of time the potential difference that is generated across the cell membrane is known as resting membrane potential. I think I have made this point clear. Okay, inside the cell starts to become negative because it is losing positive charge, and time will come when concentration force of for concentration gradient that is pushing potassium out will be equal to force through which by which negative charge is pulling this potassium in, and at that condition potential difference across cell membrane will be known as RMP, resting membrane potential. I think I have made this point very clear till now. So आदित्य, बताओ यार, सही लगा ये? यहाँ तक जो बताया इसको समझ में आया? इंग्लिश में थोड़ा मैं कोशिश कर रहा था ताकि बाकी फ्रेंड भी आपके समझ पाए. बताओ अनम्यूट करके, यहाँ तक समझ में आया? अनम्यूट करके बताना. At this concentration gradient, what happens? There will be generation of this चलो स्टार्ट स्टार्ट कर। चलो स्टार्ट चलो स्टार्ट करते हैं फिर से, ठीक है। So actually, I have explained you how this action potential is, this RMP is generated. Okay, this is basically the combined result of what sodium potassium pump, selective permeability of cell membrane, and the presence of imporous. There is impermeable sodium channel. That is, cell membrane is impermeable to the sodium ion. That is why this cell is able to create what this resting membrane potential. This potential difference is called the cell membrane. Now I'm telling you some general point. Okay, I'm explaining you some general point. Ion concentration gradient. Okay, what is this? Sodium ion is more outside, potassium ion more inside. Okay, and chlorine ion is more outside, and what this negative proteins is more inside. Okay, ठीक है। so so I think I have explained you everything about this resting membrane potential, how it is generated. Now there is something more that we need to understand. Like we should also always remember the concentration of this ion across the cell membrane, because this is very important. Because this concentration will determine lot of things. So right now I will not explain about the role of this actually numbering of this concentration gradient. I will not tell right now, but it is very important when you understand the physiology of body fluids. Okay, so that point of time I will explain you what is this is exact concentration gradient at which this movement of ion stops. Okay, so that is very important thing that I will explain you, where I will explain you body fluid. Hmm. Now based on this resting membrane potential, I will explain you what is this, how this action potential is generated. Action potential is generated. This is the action potential is nothing but the same thing that I was telling quite repeatedly, that this action potential is nothing but this is the current signal. Whenever a signal has to be transmitted from one place of the body to another, this is transmitted via action potential. This is current. Okay, this is the way our neurons transmit information. Okay, like somebody has touched you. somebody has pinched you, okay, you have touched your hand on a heater and on any hot thing, okay, or anything, or you are listening my voice, or you're seeing anything with your eyes. All these are the sensory information that you are perceiving through the environment, okay. And these sensory information that you are perceiving with your sense organ, like your eyes, skin and everything, okay, these organs are just collecting, these are the windows that are collecting information from environment, and now this information has to be sent to brain for their processing and integration and to generate some meaning, okay. So from the sensory organ to the brain, there has to be some wiring that will transmit this information. So these wirings are what, these are neurons, and these neurons are in the RMP state, that is they have a membrane potential across themselves, okay. So these are very, this is very special characteristics, and this resting membrane potential will actually help these neurons to conduct current or signal through them. So this action potential is actually how it is generated. So the basic thing I want to tell you, like this is actually generated by creating the disturbance in this RMP. What actually happens, the cell membrane is very sensitive about this potential difference, okay. whenever there is a Whenever there is a changes made in this RMP, there is dramatic changes occurring in the cell membranes ion channel, okay. There are various numerous types of ion channels present inside the cell membrane that are solely dependent on the potential difference. Whenever there is a certain potential across the cell membrane, a certain type of channel opens, and whenever there is a certain potential, a certain type of channels opens and closes. So this is the role of this potential. This potential is actually acting as a switch, okay. Whenever this potential difference is reached to certain level, okay, this switch is on, and various channels that is responsive to that potential difference open or closes. So this is how current is transmitted whenever there is a whenever there is a cell neuron encounter any changes in its RMP, there is a disturbance in RMP that leads to generation of action potential. So now first thing, that for understanding how action potential is generated, I will tell you why it is created and what is the role of RMP in it, okay. Okay, first of all, action potential, let me define it. AP, it is a rapid electrical signal that propagates along the membrane of excitable cells, okay. Rapid, just like a current that is flowing in the uh, household electricity wires, okay. Similarly, this is a rapid electrical signal electrical signal that propagates along the membrane of excitable cells like neurons, and muscle cells, okay. So this is the definition of this, and why this rapid electrical signal is propagating all of a sudden. What is the reason? Because actually, whenever there is a whenever there is a temporary rapid changes that is occurring in this membrane potential, that means I told you there is a 90 millivolt potential difference across this, across this cell membrane. Whenever there is change in this, like minus 90 has converted to minus 80, okay, minus 80 millivolt or minus 70 millivolt or any millivolt, whenever this change is occurring, there is certain things that is dramatically changing inside throughout this cell membrane. And that thing is like all the sodium ion channel, which was earlier, sodium ion was very impermeable. This cell membrane was very impermeable to the sodium ion. Now because of this change in potential difference, what actually happened, whenever this change in this all sodium voltage gated channels opens up, and just imagine if these channel will open, what will happen? Because sodium is very high over here, and also outside cell is positive and inside is negative, so all the forces are in favor of movement of this sodium ion outside the cell to inside the cell, and a huge quantity of sodium ions is rapidly moved inside inside the cell membrane, and that is what is creating the electrical current, and this is what is creating what electrical current. So I am telling you what is actually happen. AP forms when the cell membrane potential undergoes a rapid and temporary change from its resting state. Resting state means there is no movement of ions across the cell membrane at this point of time. Resting means cell membrane movement of potassium ion across the cell membrane has stopped because the balance of forces has taken place, where the ionic force that is pulling in and concentration or osmotic force that is pushing out this potassium ion have been equalized, and the cell membrane is in the equilibrium state, and that equilibrium state is known as equilibrium potential, that is resting membrane potential, and that equilibrium has been disturbed by certain things. By certain things are what? These are certain things. These things are nothing but these are the stimulus. Okay, these are the stimulus. Any stimulus that changes this, okay, that creates this disturbance in the RMP, that is capable of generating AP, and this stimulus is nothing but anything right now I've told, that is but mechanical pressure, sound, light, smell, all the body type, all the sensation that body feels, all these things, anything. I'm just giving the sensory system examination right now, but anything that causes this change in the resting membrane potential is capable of opening up all the sodium ions, okay, at once, and this dramatic opening of sodium ions will actually lead to pushing inside of the sodium ions, because all the factors are now in favor of it, and this is the cause, this is the cause why AP is generated. Okay, so temporary change from is resting state, okay, resting state, and eventually after this current has been flown away, it will again come back to its normal state, and this complete cycle, temporary change in the resting state, which is known as depolarization, and then returning to the resting potential back again, resting potential back again, this is known as repolarization. Okay, so this is what is happening. Okay, this is actually what is happening. Now I'm telling you what I'm right now, I'm telling you what what is happening over here. So I'm again making that diagram. Okay, so this is what I'm again making this cell membrane. So I'm writing this once more. This is sodium potassium pump, which is pushing out sodium out, pulling in potassium in. Outside sodium is very high concentration, inside potassium is very high. Okay, there are some channels, there are some channels that are very permeable to potassium. So potassium eventually decided to go out, but when it was going out, inside the cell was getting negatively charged. Okay, negatively charged. And what happened? what happened, because this potassium is continuously going out and inside the cell is getting negatively charged, a time will come when this negative charge pulling force will be equal to osmotic pressure pushing force. Okay, and that is known as equilibrium condition. Equilibrium condition. Okay, and at this equilibrium condition a potential difference is generated, which is known as RMP, which is approximately 90 millivolt. And now what happens, this cell membrane, now what happens, this cell membrane this cell membrane will encounter, what happens, all along this cell membrane inside will be negative charge. Okay, all along this cell membrane inside will be negative charge, and outside will be positive charge. Outside will be what? Positive charge. Till now things are very clear. What happens from this point? Suppose this cell membrane is very sensitive to changes potential. Okay, so what will actually cause the change of this potential? Actually any stimulus, anything that can cause generation of action potential is known as a stimulus. Any stimulus, what it does, it will change this potential difference, this RMP along this cell membrane. What will happen, this potential difference will be changed because of this stimulus. I'm not understanding, you might be saying that we are not getting this point, why this stimulus will change this RMP. Actually there are still some very important channels. Okay, there are some important channels present inside the cell membrane. These are different channels than the channels that I told you right now. Those potassium channels that were leaky channels, these potassium channels that are continuously open, these are known as leaky channels. Leaky channels are always open. Okay, no matter what is the potential difference, what is any gradient, anything doesn't matter, it is always open. But there are some certain other type of channels. Okay, certain other type of channels uh, which are there, which are only opened whenever, which are open, but these are not permeable to these ions. These are only permeable whenever there is what, whenever there is what, any stimulus coming to the cell. So these stimulus can be anything. Supposedly there is sound. So what will these stimulus will create, this will open these channels. Okay, and these channels are permeable for what, these channels are permeable for sodium, permeable for sodium ion. I think you're getting this. These are permeable for what, these are permeable for sodium ion. So what happens, whenever any stimulus comes, these sodium channels are opened because of this stimulus. And whenever this is very transient, stage. Okay, this is very transient stage, because as soon as sodium comes inside, as soon as sodium comes inside, inside negative inside negative is lost. Okay, inside negative charge is lost, because positive, when positive negative meet, ultimate result is 0. So this negative part is lost. And because of this 9 minus 90 is reduced to minus 89, then minus 88, because plus 1 sodium, add plus 1, because as soon as this sodium is entering inside the cell, this negative charge is diminishing. And at the point when it reaches to certain level, supposedly it is minus 80 millivolt. Okay, so till the time when this sodium enters to this threshold level, this is known as threshold level. Till then cell membrane is quite stable, till then there is nothing dramatic thing is happening inside the cell. But when this threshold level is breached, whenever this threshold level is breached, okay, there is big changes occurring will start to occur inside this cell membrane. Okay, So at this threshold level, this threshold level, okay, is reached due to the help of this stimulus, due to this stimulus. Okay, I'm writing this point over here, so that you have a content also. I'm also explaining you this these topics. Along with, I will also try to explain you these in the written form. So what is this stimulus and threshold? Okay, stimulus is something that is capable of generating AP, that you know till now. But any form of information, this is also type of information, okay, which can be generated via external stimulus, like these sensory information that I told, or sometime internally, like with the help of neurotransmitter. All these are capable of generating this this all these are capable of reaching the cell membrane to this threshold level, okay, and that allows, that facilitate the cell membrane potential to reach this threshold level, will be termed as a what? Stimulus. Okay, so anything that causes the membrane potential to reach a critical threshold level, okay, okay, that is the stimulus, okay, critical threshold level. And what happens, because when this critical level is reached, what happens, there is very dramatic things is now going to happen. Suppose sodium has continuously come inside and negative charge is lost and cell membrane is reached to again minus 80 millivolt. It should be quick and it is graded, like like if stimulus if stimulus is only able to reach to till make till minus 85, there will be no AP generated. Suppose one stimulus is able to generate to is able to create plus 5 difference, and another stimulus is also able to create plus 5. So these two will be added, and overall effect will be of plus 10, so plus 10 minus 90 will result into minus 80. So again this threshold is reached. So what I am trying to say is this threshold can be reached in a single stimulus also, or if a multiple stimulus comes together, then there is summation. If their summation leads to this what? Threshold level, then also this AP can be generated. So this is a graded potential, okay. This stimulus that is provided to this neuron cell membrane to reach threshold is a graded, okay, this is graded potential. But after when this sodium, the next step that when that will actually come in next step, that will be not be graded, that follows all or none law, okay. Like I'm telling you what is actually happening over here. Whenever this minus 80 critical level is reached, what happens? Special type of channels, special type of channels all along the cell membrane, all along the cell membrane opens up. I'm not drawing all over, but just imagine throughout this cell membrane, this channel opens up, and this channel is known as sodium voltage gated channel. What does this mean? Voltage gated channel. And to explain this, what is actually what actually this is, these are the specialized type of sodium channels present in the cell membrane of neuron that only opens when a threshold or a specific potential difference is achieved. Whenever there is a specific potential difference is achieved, only then the sodium channel open, okay, opens on critical membrane potential. Okay, and when this sodium channel is open, what will happen? All the sodium that was still now outside the cell membrane will come inside the cell membrane at once. And that what will that leads to? This minus 80 millivolt will eventually lead to minus 40, minus 10, plus 10, and then plus 25, till where it can go. Okay, till at that point, whenever it is capable of moving, till that position, till that situation, this sodium will move inside the cell membrane and eventually creating a lot of changes throughout the cell membrane potential difference. Okay, ionic gradient. Now the sodium has moved inside and this RMP has reached to this plus 25 level inside. All the cells adjacent to this neurons, all the cells not along this neurons, the current will move. All along this neuron, this current will move forward, because as this region gets depolarized, this region is getting sodium in, the surrounding region is also getting stimulated, so this region will also start. Okay, let me draw over here again so that you can understand again properly. Okay, I am telling you, suppose this region, this region is getting loads of sodium in, what will happen? Adjacent sodium VGCs will get stimulated, and it will again allow sodium to come in. And when this region is getting stimulated, it will stimulate at adjacent sodium channel this side, so this sodium will come in. So ultimately, what you are saying, initial there was positive charge only here, then after some time this positive charge will move over here, then after some time this charge will move here. Eventually what you will see, this positive charge is propagating forward, this positive charge is propagating forward throughout the length of this neuron. Okay, and this is what is known as electrical current. So this is how electrical current is generated, and this is acting as a signal. This is acting as a what? This is acting as a signal. This is acting as a signal for further the neurons over here, that there's something has been done to this neuron, and this neuron is excitable to certain types of stimulus, like eye is responsive to light. Okay, so the neuron that is ahead of this, they know this particular type of neuron is excitable to stimulus to light only. So whenever there is light hitting this this threshold, this this normal sodium channel, that is that is open only due to potential difference, that is only open due to with the help of what, this membrane potential. uh, this is only open when there is a stimulus comes. So when this comes, there is threshold potential reached, and that cause opening of this sodium ion with sodium voltage gated channels, and throughout the length this sodium ions get forward, acting as a form of current. Okay, so let's have a break of 5, and I will again continue. So this is how action potential is generated, and I think action potential topic is also complete now. Till now, for from my knowledge, this is complete. Only now second part of this, that repolarization stage is remaining, that I will initiate after some time. Okay, welcome back once again. So right now I have explained you how this action potential is generated. Okay, how it is propagating inside this neuron cells. Now the next thing that will come into your mind is like once this neuron is activated. So what happens next? How it is going to how it is going to get back to normal. Okay. So what things will happen after this, so that this cell membrane will regain its RMP once back its original form. So I'm telling you this. Now first of all I will tell you some terminologies that is used to understand these concept. Number one is like depolarization phase. What happens? Now I'm explaining again. I'm repeating again. What happens? There is cell membrane in RMP. Certain stimulus come. This stimulus causes opening of sodium channels. Okay, which causes disturbance in RMP. That is minus 90 millivolt is reduced to minus 80 millivolt, and these stimulus this stimulus is causing this, and because of this a threshold level is reached. And this threshold is what? This threshold, at this threshold level, that is at this certain potential difference, sodium VGCs opens up, and sodium moves in side cell and causes what? And causes what? RMP to reach plus 25 millivolt level. So that is lot of sodium has entered inside the cell. Okay, because of that, now the cell membrane is positively charged. There is reversal. So earlier the cell was in polarized state. That means positive charge was outside, negative charge was inside. So there are polar compound. Polar compound is when the two opposite type of charge are separated through certain distance, like this positive and negative. This is polar. There is polarity was maintained because of the characteristic of the cell membrane, where sodium potassium pump and leaky potassium ion channel was contributing to this polarity. But when this sodium voltage gated channel opens up, this polarity is lost. So this step where this polarity is lost is known as depolarization. Okay, so this step is known as what? Depolarization. What happens whenever this threshold is reached? Sodium ions rush into the cells along their concentration gradient as well as along their electrical gradient. Okay, what happens? There is sodium bodies that is opening. Sodium here concentration is also high, and here positive charge is also there. So positive charge is also pushing this positive charge ion, and also concentration, high concentration is also pushing in. So though all the factors are now in favor of sodium moving in. Okay. Okay, so this reaches to minus 25 to plus 25 to plus 30 millivolt level. And believe me, one thing, one important concept earlier I was telling, there was graded this stimulus, this stimulus that is causing opening of this sodium channel. This is graded potential. This is what? Graded potential. What does this means? Like plus 2 stimulus, plus 4 stimulus, plus 4 stimulus, all these can be summed up together to reach plus 10 level. And if this plus 10, and if this plus 10 will disturb minus 90 to minus 80 level, so then this AP will be generated. So this is graded. But what happens when there is a stimulus greater than plus 10? Like there is stimulus great 11 millivolt, plus 11 millivolt, or 20 millivolt. So what does this will do? Is this potential difference, is this stimulus potential that is going to change this RMP, create certain different effect? Like Is this plus 11 millivolt stimulus will create more action potential or less action potential compared to this 20 millivolt threshold that is given? So the answer is no. After you reach this specific threshold level, no matter what much higher this stimulus potential is, the cell will generate the same pattern of AP. Cell generate what? Same pattern of AP, and that is known as all or none law. All or none principle. In all or none potential principle, what happens if the combined graded potential is till 9? It is not reaching to threshold. No matter what, how many times you try, like once you given plus 4, and after again 2 minutes you have given 4. This is not going to happen that way. All plus 4 plus 2 should be given together at once only, then only that can be summed up. If summation time is not there, then this will not be added up. Okay, so if the combined summation is not able to reach what threshold, no matter what happens, how many times you stimulate the cells, the cell will not convert into this stimulus into AP. And whenever this AP is reached, no matter how strong stimulus you give, all the time, every time, this AP will always be of same intensity. So this is what is known as all or none potential. I think till now you have understand so many concepts regarding this membrane dynamics. Okay. Now coming to next point, like how this cell membrane will come back to its normal. Okay. So I will tell you that also. I told you initially there are some leaky channels. There are some leaky channels that are always open for potassium. And you know there is this sodium potassium pump which is always working no matter what, pushing 3 sodium out and 2 potassium in. Continuously this is going on. And what is next I'm telling you, like I told you that lot of sodium has moved inside the cell. Lot of sodium has moved inside the cell and cell has reached to positive 25 millivolt potential. Okay, because of what? Because of this sodium voltage gated channel. Sodium voltage gated channel, and this sodium voltage gated channel is open because threshold is reached. Threshold is reached. Okay, and threshold is there is potential difference, a certain specific potential that has reached, and that specific potential is causing this opening of the sodium ion channel. Now because of that potential, the sodium, lot of sodium has reached. But you know that earlier I also told that potassium ion is very high inside the cell. Potassium ion is very high inside the cell, and and potassium always tries to move outside the cell. Potassium was always trying to move outside the cell, but what was pushing him inside is this negative charge. Negative charge, because as one potassium goes out, one negative ion potential is formed inside the cell. So there is always a tussle between this concentration gradient and ionic gradient. This potassium was pushed out by concentration gradient, and pulled in by this ionic gradient, ionic force. Okay, but are you seeing, like, when this action potential is generated, lot of sodium is coming in, this ionic gradient has lost. Earlier this minus 90 millivolt power was pulling this potassium in, but now this minus 90 millivolt power is lost, and now this 25 millivolt power is again regained. So what will actually eventually happen, this potassium has now all the favorable characteristics that is going to push this potassium outside the cell. And what are these? Now this potassium is being pushed both by concentration as well as it is pushed by ionic gradient, because now this positive charge is pushing this positive out of the cell, and this concentration gradient is also pushing out of the cell. So what happens, again a time will come when lot of potassium has been removed out of the cell, and cell is eventually getting negative and more negative. This plus 25 will reach to 0, they'll reach to 0, then minus 10, minus 20, and eventually a time will come then again this cell membrane will regain its minus 90 millivolt status. Okay, that means cell is again returning to its polarized state. Cell is again returning to its polarized state, and this polarized state is caused by what? It is caused by the movement of potassium ion from inside of the cell to outside. Okay, so now you will understand this phenomena, two concepts like depolarization, in which sodium moves in, and there is repolarization, again cell is trying to regain its polarity. So this is known as repolarization, and this repolarization is due to what? Potassium is coming, moving out, because all the factors that all the factors that are favorable for the movement of this potassium ions are now intact. Positive charge inside the cell and concentration gradient both are pushing potassium out, and eventually a lot of potassium will move out, and a time will come when this negative charge will again come back to its RMP level, and then again cell will be in the repolarized state. So your question will come, another, I had a doubt when I was studying this. Your question will come, if in on multiple APs, a time will come then a lot of sodium again come inside the cell, because every ATP sodium is coming in and in depolarization state, and potassium is moving out. So all the effort that was done by this sodium potassium pump is gone in vain, because eventually what happens, after some amount of time potassium will be more outside the cell and sodium will be more inside the cell, because in AP what is happening, sodium is coming in and potassium is going out. So no, my friend, this sodium potassium pump is constantly doing his job. What is doing, this sodium that is coming inside the cell in every APs is being pushed out by this sodium potassium pump to maintain this ionic gradient across the cell membrane. So this ionic gradient is delicately maintained by this sodium potassium pump. This sodium potassium pump is moving out the sodium and letting potassium come in by the expense of ATP, and this is how this cell membrane of this neuron is beautifully maintaining the action potential. Maintaining this resting membrane potential is conducting the action potential. It is also maintaining the ionic gradient. Okay, it is also maintaining the ionic gradient. So this is how beautifully the neuron is working, and this is how current is moving inside the cell. So I think I have been able to clear your concept regarding this. Okay, and there are certain more important concept regarding this, like refractive period, till if one action potential is given, so after how much time this second action potential will be uh, able to pass through the neuron. So the answer is very clear, till one action potential is completed entirely, like all the depolarization and repolarization is completed and cell has again regained its RMP, then only new AP will come. So till that time, what will happen to this cell membrane, what will happen to this positive charge area, what will happen, like if this area has become positive charge, inside this become positive charge, so now if I pinch over here again, so will this again carry another AP? No, it will not carry, till this again has been converted to from plus to minus. Till then it will not conduct any action potential. So again, to convert this cell membrane into the positive charge, again to convert this cell membrane to, sorry, negative charge, cell has to wait for this potassium to go out, and at the moment when this has reached to this RMP level, then cell will again become what again will become capable of conducting AB. Okay, so now this action potential is very important because it is a way of by our nervous system. Okay, so this is the basic thing that I want to tell you about this. And now tomorrow I will again tell you about this sensory system, and also I will tell about what muscle contraction. So at that point of time, these concepts will play very important role in shaping your understanding of the coming lectures. So thank you so much. So this is the end of this lecture. Hope we meet tomorrow again.